Every item in the quilt show must have a sleeve on the back for hanging. I've prepared this handout explaining how to put a sleeve on your quilt. Sample number 1 is the style most commonly used. It's hand-stitched to the top of your quilt and can be removed easily after the show. Any fabric from your stash will work, even muslin, because it will eventually be removed. So the first step is to measure the top of your finished quilt. Cut a piece of fabric 10 inches wide. The length is going to be the size of your finished quilt minus 1 inch. It's okay to piece the sleeve in order to get the desired length. So the first step is to hem both ends. You're going to turn it under a 1/2 inch, turn it under again a 1/2 inch, and then stitch along the fold and make a nice clean hem on both ends. So the next step is to fold it in half lengthwise, and you're going to stitch along here, along the raw edges, so you're making a tube. So this is the finished sleeve. It's a tube. The seam allowance is in the center, and both edges, press a fold in both edges. Now it's going to be put on the top of your quilt, 1 inch down from the top, and about 1 inch in from the edge, and the seam allowance is going to be hidden in between the tube and the back of the quilt. So then, in order to finish this, you're going to hand stitch along both edges of the fold and along this inside edge to hold your sleeve on. That's it. In sample 2, we are going to make a permanent sleeve. This style would be used when making a wall hanging or a small quilt which you intend to hang. It works well and is less noticeable if you choose a fabric that matches the backing of the quilt. The sleeve is attached to the quilt before the binding is finished. When making a permanent sleeve, the width can be adjusted to accommodate the size of the pole that you intend to use. So we start in the same way that we did sample number 1. I have cut this 6 inches wide, and we're going to hem both ends of it. So we turn it under a 1/2 inch, turn it under another 1/2 inch, and stitch it along the edge to make 2 nice hems. The top edge is going to be left as a raw edge. The bottom edge is going to be turned under. So we're going to put a permanent sleeve on this quilt. You'll see that the binding has already been sewn on. We're now going to attach the sleeve to the back of the quilt. This is the edge that has the fold, and this is the raw edge here. The raw edge is going to line up with the edge of your quilt. Pin it in place, and then stitch along here just inside the stitch line that holds your binding on. To finish, the raw edge is going to get sewn into the binding. The folded edge is going to be stitched down by hand. Here's a couple of quilt samples that have permanent sleeves. It's just 1 layer of fabric, so there's almost no bulk. If your quilt has a busy fabric on the back, the sleeve is almost invisible.